My name is Heather Reid. I am the great-granddaughter of John Carr and Margaret Carr, and the great-great-granddaughter of Thomas Carr, and the great-grand-niece of Frederick Carr. So all of those people have their names inscribed on the Workers' Memorial. Well, John Carr was born on the 15th of July 1870 in Port Adelaide. He was the fourth son of Thomas and Maria Carr, and lived his entire life practically in Dale Street, Port Adelaide, where he also died in 1929. So he was a true Port Adelaide person through and through. Coming from a large family, very early on, I think in his life, he learned how to be cooperative, and he certainly came from humble beginnings, so he was always modest, unassuming, and generous and kind, I think, with his time. He was a very skilled negotiator, and I think that was probably because of his personality. He was a fairly humble person, and he was a gentle person as well, but he had a firm set of beliefs which he abided by, but he had the ability to see somebody else's point of view. His mantra really was to think carefully before you speak and think out a situation first. And while he was Secretary of the Union, they had no strikes. In 1915, he was persuaded to nominate for the Legislative Council for the Central No. 1 District, which was the Port Adelaide District. So he nominated thinking that there'll be plenty of others who will as well, but nobody else did. So he found himself in Parliament unopposed, and he subsequently held the seat until his death in 1929. Carnations were John Carr's favourite flower, and he quite often wore a carnation in his buttonhole as a boutonniere. Even though he didn't have an office in Port Adelaide, he used his front room in his home as his office. So when he arrived home from work each night, he would come home. There were so many people lined up outside the house to the next corner just waiting to see him. So he would see them all before he ate his dinner, and sometimes he would give them money from his own pocket because they were so in need. So he was a real champion, I think, of the people. He was one of them, and he never forgot that. The people in Port Adelaide actually called him Honourable John. That was his nickname. Well, a lot of things that happened that John was agitating for or championing for occurred after his death, but certainly the Birkenhead Bridge was one. Whether it was in that form or not, it was that he wanted another river crossing from Port Adelaide to Birkenhead, so it eventually came about. Women are able to vote in both houses of Parliament today, and also people who don't own property are also able to vote. The funeral was attended by members of government, members of opposition, the local council, members of unions, so a lot of dignitaries, and I think that was testament to how highly he was regarded. I think his legacy lives on in us, and to think that he's remembered and admired and memorialised almost 100 years after his death, I think is a truly wonderful thing, and I'm sure he would be probably slightly embarrassed, but I think he'd be very pleased as well. John Carr was on the first committee to help establish some sort of memorial for a good union man who had been killed in World War I. Subsequently, it grew into a workers' memorial to memorialise all those who were good or deceased labour workers from the district. He was at the unveiling and opening and saw his father's name inscribed on it, Thomas Carr, and then subsequently, after John had died, his name is on it as well. John Carr and I'd say Margaret were just shining beacons for their descendants because they showed true empathy for people. They were involved in social justice issues. We are immeasurably proud of them and of their legacy. The memorial has always been a part of our family. Our mum used to point that out to us, and she was very proud of her grandfather. We were always taught to think about those less fortunate and to do what you can when you can, and I think they were the examples that we should follow.